Thank you to our music leading team today to get us woken up and ready for the day. Are we here? We're going to invite everyone to make their way to their seats so we can start the meeting. Make your way to your seats.
When is the...
Good morning, everyone. I trust, here's my script. I trust you had a restful night. Oh, I didn't. Oh, I did sleep. That's okay. I'm now in my role. I'd like to call the meeting back to order to continue with the business that comes before us as the Canadian Shield Regional Council. We're going to begin with, continue with, as I say, with morning worship. And Reverend Ryan Fay is presiding and with the music and worship team, which just left. So, so Ryan.
That's okay. I'll stick with the pulpit. Always walking around so much. While the music team sets up, I don't know if you want to hear the story of my name. We were talking about names yesterday, and my parents saw the smallest child born in our family who lived and said, "That looks like a Ryan." Ryan is, surprisingly enough, sourced from Irish background and means king or little king, oddly. The name Fay comes from a Gaelic word that refers to the Fay folk, the wee little people. So literally my name means king of the fairies. I've been told it's appropriate in some instances. So, yeah. And my first middle name, Edward, is the middle name of my godfather and Uncle Bob. And my other middle name, Charles, is my father's middle name, which was my grandfather's actual name. So it's an interesting history, isn't it? Yeah. And I'd like to acknowledge, as one who was raised in a settler culture and with skin as pale as this, because the nurses have never complained about finding my veins, that I have grown up with privilege in our society. I am honored to serve with, for now, the only officially affirming United Church in the greater Sudbury area until May 26th, when we will be overjoyed to celebrate with Trinity Capriel as they celebrate their affirming status. Wonderful things go on when we share love, open our hearts. So I welcome you this morning to our worship and invite you to open your hearts, open your minds, stand as you are able, and lift your voices as you are able, as we join in our opening hymn from More Voices, number 92. Like a Rock, and we'll sing it 3 times if that's okay with everybody. All right. If you keep singing, what are we going to do? I don't know the actions. Who knows the actions? Nancy? You want to come and Melody?
I never do the actions.
I picked up 1 or 2, but someone come up and do it.
I never do the actions. I'm always playing it.
This is why we were called to start a few minutes earlier, so we have some. We can move on the fly. That's okay. They can have different. Yeah, you can have different.
You can ad lib.
Yeah.
Like the sun ever before, like the river runs to ocean. God is under our feet, like the star in the sky. God is over our head, like the sun, rise, darkest ever before, like the river runs to ocean, our hope is in God evermore. Like a rock, God is under our feet. Sorry, eyes, is over our head, like the sun. Never before, like the river runs to ocean, is it God evermore?
Thank you, Faye. Thank you, Melody. And thank you all for joining in that. And I invite you to join in our spiritual focus. Your indication of invitation to responsive or unison prayer is in bold on the screen. Right. There we go. Oh, it's in yellow. It's in yellow on the screen. Fashioned from the very earth, we are the living rock. Awake and rise, you living rock, to work by Spirit, to work God's purpose in the world. Upon this rock, Christ builds his church. Come, let us worship. The Spirit calls. Let us join in our opening prayer. God of creation, you formed us from the living rock of the world, made of the minerals and nutrients of the earth. The tectonic forces of this, our only home and life support, are always in motion. Volcanoes burst forth with new life and new creation, even as they burn away what once was there. Mountains erode and share elements essential to life with land and sea. Shake us awake this day, and let our lives burst forth with new creation, even as we honor the past. Rain your inspiration upon us, inspiring us to share our gifts with all the world. Refresh our spirits with the waters of life. Smooth our rough edges, sharpen our dullness, and strengthen our resolve to be your people, to be your church. Amen. Church, our reading comes from the Gospel according to Matthew, chapter 16, verses 16 to 20. Try to pay attention and see if you recognize it. Simon answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered him, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. I will give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Then he sternly ordered the disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Messiah. A word for us today from our ancestors in faith. Thanks be to God. I invite you to join me in a moment of prayer. Another moment of prayer. God of love and creation, may the words we hear and share today and the meditations of all our hearts lead to actions that awaken your dream for this world. Loving God, our rock, our Redeemer, and our Sustainer. Amen. You are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church. Now, it may be that I grew up with a parent who worked in the Department of Geology at the University of Saskatchewan, that when I reflect on this passage, I am drawn to the tectonic forces that shape our planet. Even as I honor the land and its traditional stewards and our duty to healing and to relationship. I'm drawn back to the primordial formation of the earth. This earth, our only home and life support, is alive with movement. The throbbing pressures of heat, molten rock, and matter churning deep, deep beneath the crust of the earth, the magma of the mantle that moves within. My mind swirls like the liquid hot stone that thrusts forth in igneous intrusions, creating veins within the lands upon which we live. And it creates faults, great fractures in the surface of the planet that force some material upward, creating mountain ranges like the Great Rockies of the West, just as other material is returned to the mantle to become once more a part of the renewing life of the planet. The cycle of life and death and life beyond death of the planet reflects our own. I think of volatile eruptions of volcanoes that both destroy and create. Where there was land once before is made new again with new possibilities of life and death, rich soil or radioactive matter, parallels to the upheavals of our lives. Diamonds or uranium, you never know what you're going to get. Does the living spirit move within these forces as well? The earth, too, has been inspired, perhaps, by the living God. Does the earth recognize the generosity of its creator, sharing its bounty with the plants and animals who live upon the land, with the seas awash with life, and the birds of the skies that blanket the planet in atmosphere? The living rock that provides nutrients and minerals, stone and renewal inspire the imagination. Resurrection embodied in the geological reality of our planet. The living God. Now, the crust is unlikely to ever be completely replaced through tectonic forces, but new life springs forth constantly. Always much that is similar, familiar, and yet always something new emerging. The deep ocean crust, being replaced every 200 million years, moves almost as slowly as change in the church. It even says pause for laughter. While the lighter continental crusts, never likely to completely sink back into the mantle, and yet they are always in motion, always in renewal. It shakes us up. It's dangerous and deadly, sometimes tragic, always awe-inspiring, bringing new creation and new possibilities. Why is he talking about geology? Well, I'll tell you why. The generosity of this continuous creation has not skipped any of us. Along with providing all that sustains our lives and our ways of life, we are made of the earth. Calcium, phosphorus, potassium, sodium, magnesium, iron, zinc, iodine, chloride, chromium, copper, fluoride, manganese, and selenium. These minerals from the earth are some of the essential components of the human body. Without them, we could not exist. Did you know that calcium facilitates the action potentials of the synapses of the brain? Thank you, neuropsych degree. Indeed, calcium ions trigger the release of neurotransmitters contained in the vesicles and initiate synaptic transmission. Without that one mineral from the earth, we could not think. We could not function. Iron oxygenates the blood. The very air we breathe, allowed through that mineral, to feed the organs and the tissues of the body. Water, hydrogen, and oxygen hydrates our systems and is a major component for how our bodies work. Ionic exchange assists in nourishing cells with minerals and nutrients that we need to live. Made of the living earth, we are living stone. Each one of us a part of the continuous renewal
Oh, in the breakfast.
of
Sorry, I
life
thought you meant there.
on
Yeah.
earth.
I'm like,
Rock brought to life, to be called, inspired, and drawn to the message of the Christ, to know that we are the children of the creating Spirit, connected to one another through the most basic reality, freely given. As freely as God's grace, we, living rocks, are all made of the earth, called to respond to this generosity, agents with agency, free to flow as lava, to destroy or to create, often both, by our very being. Empowered to perceive and reveal the presence of the Spirit alive in the world, we are called by Christ to be the embodied stone that is the foundation of the church, headed by Christ, belonging to God, called to embody God's nature that is love, so essentially alive. How will we choose to move and to live and to have our being living stones as the church? Will we create or will we destroy? Will we destroy in order to create? Will we create in order to destroy? Will we roll out love? Will we burst forth with courage and justice, renewal and life-giving generosity for all? Or are we sedimentary, still and unmoved, apathetic, buried fossils? Or are we a landslide of care and passion for life? We are free to choose. Rocks, let's roll. Thanks be to God. Amen. Sure, you can come. Pause for applause right there. Friends, we continue in our worship in our prayerful ways as we join in a moment of pastoral prayer. Let us pray. God of all creation, you call us to be the foundation of your church. We are so often humbled and intimidated by this call, for we know that it involves much risk. Fortify us by the strength of your grace to do your work. Shake us awake in times that we are comfortable with the status quo, when we are unable to see that others are being crushed under the stones of historical and cultural oppression. Crack open hearts when they turn to stone, so that we may be your immortal diamonds of love for all the world. In this moment, we now name aloud, or in the silence of our hearts, the people, situations, and places that need the stone rolled away so that life may flourish. And you're invited to name them aloud now.
Suffering people of Gaza under bombardment by the state of Israel.
Places of war and suffering. Yemen, Ukraine, Russia, Israel, Gaza, Sudan, and too many to name. In all creation, God of love, you have formed a web of interconnectedness. Woven together with the pains and sorrows of life are the joys and blessings that bring vibrancy to life. Hope, love, and joy flow into our lives like veins of igneous rock that marble our existence with grace. The emerald green of natural beauty, the sapphire blues of the waters of life, the ruby red color of life's blood and love's passion. In the blessings of this life, we lift our thanksgivings. We name now aloud or in the silence of our hearts the people, situations, and places where we stand firm in relationship and where joys burst forth to form new life. And we may name them in this moment. For Claire in her transition, finally able to feel that she is herself. For love shared, for justice upheld. With the prayers of our hearts and our lips, we continue to pray, saying the words that Jesus taught us, our Creator in heaven. Hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come. Your will be done on the earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And forgive us into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For yours is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Our commissioning hymn comes from More Voices 37, Each Blade of Grass. You may stand as you're able and raise your voices as you're able.
Your grass, every wing that soars, the waves that swing across a distant shore, make full the circle of God. Each mountain, a forest that beneath the moon bright sky, make full the circle of God. Each silent walk, every mountain snow, the vast that echoes from a honeyed core, make full the circle of God. Each mountain the wind that leaps and sails across the land, make full the circle of God. Each icy peak, every patterned shell, the dawn foretells, make full of circle of God. Each was making beauty of this vast array, making full of circle of God.
Awake. Awake, arise, rocks of the church. In life's upheavals, let us be the foundation of God's love. In life's complacencies, let us be the volcanic forces that change in the Spirit's fire. And in life's dangers, let us be the rock of comfort and compassion in Christ's peace. Amen.
Who's up on the screen? So just before we move into the budget conversation, I'm wondering if we might, because we have a moment, to reconnect with our Zoom, our online participants, because we tend to forget if we don't reconnect each morning. So They're slowly coming on the screen. How many? We know how many are online? 28. Yeah, one big wave. There's 27 people who are joining us online. So let's say good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Donna Roots is sort of leading them. Wonderful. We appreciate her ministry there. We hope they had a good sleep. Can't hear anything from them. All right. Well, we are about a minute ahead of game, but we're doing really well. So now we're going to spotlight Peter and Janet McDonald. And we're going to turn our attention to the financial report and the budget, the draft budget found on the website, but it's also in the report packet on page 67. So if you have your copy handy and you want to turn to page 67 and have that before you, or maybe you memorized it and you have it in your head, or you have it on your device. Page 67, I believe. Is that where, was I right? Yeah, there it is. Okay. And I'm going to invite Janet McDonald to turn on her camera. Is she up there? Oh, there she is. Well, no. Oh, okay. I'm going to look at yours. Oh, there's Janet. Hi, Janet. And Peter.
Hi, Nancy.
Good morning, Peter and Janet.
Good morning. Hope
Good.
things are going well in the Sioux there.
It's sunshine this morning.
Same here in Guelph. How about you, Janet, in Port Elgin?
Port Elgin now has sun. We had a lot of fog this morning, but it's turning to a nice day.
Nice.
So Janet's with us to present the draft budget and to answer any questions. But we're going to invite you to jot down your questions that you might have, because at the end of Janet's presentation, the online and in-person scrutineers will collect your questions and will send them off to Janet so she can address them later this afternoon. So we're not going to have that back and forth exchange. We're just going to hear the budget. She's going to explain it in detail. If you have a question, write it down or put it in the chat, and then Janet will respond to them this afternoon before the vote. So there we go. Over to you, Janet.
Thank you, Nancy. I'm going to do a minute of how we do budget before I actually ask that the budget be put up on the screen. Just a reminder to everyone, we present a budget at the regional meeting. It stays in draft form even after it's approved at the regional meeting, at which point we basically take it back into the fall when we actually have final numbers, because right now, I was just looking at it, about half of the numbers are still up in the air. And then when the final budget gets put together, the finance resource team will take a look at it and it will go to the executive in either November or December. So if you have very specific why this amount is there, it's probably because we don't know at this point. So, Celio, can I have the designated funds sheet put up? Do you have that? Designated, I'll talk until he gets it up. Designated funds are funds that came into the region when the region was formed from the former Presbyterian conferences. They are not, have you got the other sheet? That's the actual budget.
It's page 68 of the workbook, Celio.
And basically these funds were designated by Presbyterian conference, and then we consolidated them because Presbytery A might have had one that said this and slightly different from Presbytery B. So we've put them together and we try and present them to you each year. They are also on the website.
Steve know, and then he phoned me.
That's the one. Thank you. Can we make it full screen? Because I don't know about you, but I'm having a real hard time seeing it. If not, I'll just try and run through them. We have funds for different things. The amounts are there. I'm not going to read them all. We have funds for affirming ministries from archives, 3% of any church building that's sold. goes to archives. So the fund is getting down, but there's some more money come in since January. So it will be up. The camping fund comes from one of the previous presbyteries and the sale of a camp. Clusters and networks, congregational support, the general fund, which is at the discretion of the executive. Health, Joy, and Excellent is funding for ministry personnel education. Lay education is for lay education. Legal Reserve Fund is there. Hopefully we never need it, but if we really need it, it's not going to go too far. The LLWL program seems to be a fantastic program. They had an in-person gathering last weekend. New outreach initiatives, that is for congregations to use, and it's one of the funds that's actually getting used. There's a Preparing for Ministry fund. For people who are working toward ministry. Toward Right Relations is another fund we have, and we have a fund for youth programming. Now, the grants team actually administers these funds, and that, I believe, is still a Melody thing. So, Melody piece of work. So, if you have information or have questions about that, you can put them in, but it's really more a report than it is what we're doing with them. So now I am going to turn to the budget. Celio, sorry, can you flip back to the other one? Thank you. Can you go up to the top? Okay, across the top of this, I have the 2023 actual. The books are at the auditor, so these are not audited numbers. These are my numbers for year end. The 2024 budget is what we're currently working with. And then there's a draft 2025 budget, which is on the far right of your screen or your piece of paper. I'm going to run through it relatively quickly so you have time to write questions, give them to me, and I will try and answer them this afternoon. If I determine that there are more questions for debate, I will not answer them. I will answer questions for clarification. The grants that we get from the National Church, we get 3 for sure every year. We get an assessment grant. It's been $325,000 per year since the inception of the regions. There is talk that it may be reduced, so we went with $300,000. Again, as I said, there's a lot of numbers that are not definite, and we don't know yet. The M&S grant up until last year was $240,000. It was cut for 2024 to $180,000. I budgeted that it stays the same, but we do not know. The other grant, there is a contingency amount set aside by the National Church every year across the regions. If it's not used, then it comes back to the regions as a bit of a bonus. We got one last year. The salary grant covers basically the salaries of the executive minister and the executive minister's support person is the way it was set up. When we started this in 2019, $99,000 covered that. It no longer does, but it does help. So we're looking at getting $579,000 in the draft budget for 2025 from the National Church. We get a HST and GST rebate. I don't budget it because it's an in and out, but for financial purposes, it must be shown. So you'll see numbers for 2023. You won't see numbers for 2024 or 2025. Our investment income, we had a really good year in 2023. We had 2024 is looking good, so I budgeted $90,000. We'll see. Miscellaneous, that was money that came from a community center that closed that had originally been started by one of the presbyteries, so they gave us back some money. The Festival of Faith income, when the Festival of Faith in 2020 was held in 2023, it was totally run by Canadian Shield, although Shining Waters was invited to join. The one coming up in 2025 is a shared expense and shared income. So basically, I took numbers from 2023 and divided by 2. You'll see that again when we get to expenses. The income for youth is the Canada Summer Jobs Grant in 2023 for Camp Awesome, which is a program run by Shining Waters, but it was run jointly. So some of the money came to the region, to Canadian Shield region, and then all expenses were paid by Shining Waters. So you'll see in the bottom of the expenses, that money goes out again. Pastoral relations income is income for pastoral charge supervisors. I think that's all that's in there. And then in 2023, we had 289,000 come in from residual from a church. The 2024, 35,000, that was purely a number I used to balance the budget. I can tell you in 2024, there's already been more money than that come in. I don't budget assuming we're closing churches, so there is no money in the 2025 budget at this point. Can we go down, please, to the expenses? Expenses. The archives expenses is showing 0 across the board. If we ever get to the point where the archives fund gets below what we have to spend, then there will be a number there. We support the Grand River Bookstore, which I understand is on site in Sault Ste. Marie this weekend. Please support them. Buy lots of books. Clusters and networks. We're not spending very much from it. There is a reserve fund to cover it, so I did not budget for 2025. I'm assuming the money can come out, or I will take the money out of the reserve fund. Committees haven't spent money, so I didn't give them any. Let's leave it at that. Congregational support, that line is there because in 2022, there was money spent. We now have a reserve fund to cover most of those costs. But again, it could happen. Corporation overview is what we pay to National Church to look after our corporations, to make sure their filings are up to date, make sure their financials are in order, their minutes, that everything is going the way it's supposed to be. The executive budget, you did have the executive had a meeting in person. It cost about $8,000, so that's what I budgeted. The Festival of Faith last year, which I gather was a big success. I was in the Maritimes at that point. I budgeted $18,000 for costs for next year. The finance number, the majority of the finance number is the audit. Also, my income, my costs come out of there, plus a few other things. The grants are the grants that come from the M&S allocation, and those are given by the grants committee. They deal with that. Legal fees, again, I think we may have already spent that or part of that for 2024. It's never a number we know. Miscellaneous, I did not budget anything. There will be a budget line there in the fall. Office expenses, I understand we just closed the Thunder Bay office. So maybe that number can come down a little bit, but we did spend $31,000 last year, so it's based on realities. Pastoral relations expenses, they are what they are. We pay the supervisors from that fund and other pastoral relations expenses. The regional meeting, I only budgeted, what I did in 2023 and 2024 was I budgeted $35,000 each year. Which was a $70,000 for the total meeting. I only budgeted 17 for half of the next one, so we're going to have to find some more funds if we're going to continue meeting at places like Quattro. Retail sales tax, that's basically the net, as in what we get back versus what we pay. Social Justice Networks of Ontario Regions is a number that we are assessed, and we agree to pay that. Celio, can we go up to staff team so they can see the numbers? Thank you. Again, I mean, the cell phone numbers are the internet, all those are pretty standard. We do not know what the salary increase will be for next year. We're still working on the staff sharing between the two regions, so that may change a little bit. Travel, we left at $20,000. Hopefully that covers it. Resources are for things they need. They have some curriculum stuff, etc. that goes in there. So total for staffing costs $486,000. Shared expenses I put up a little bit. We're doing, and maybe I should have put it up more because we're doing a lot of things between regions now. And then the youth budget I left at $10,000. So giving us a total of expenses of $689,000 and showing a balanced budget. So at this point, Nancy, do you want to give them instructions? Is Nancy there?
I'm here. So the
She is.
instructions, so Janet has presented the draft budget, and let's take time at our table groups. If you have a question on any of it, please write it down online. If you could put it in the chat box. And is Jody or our scrutineers? There you are. Okay. Oh, no. Yeah. Yeah. The vote is later. We're just getting any questions for Janet so that she might be able to respond this afternoon. Good. Good. If you have any questions, please hand them to the scrutineers. We're not having a set break. They just did that. Okay. 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 All right. So as you're handing your votes to our scrutineers and putting them in the chat box, for those here in the plenary, just to let you know, we are adults this morning, which means if you need to take a break or you need to get something to, wander and get drinks or snacks, do that. But if you could also be mindful that we can hear the conversation from the periphery in the hall here. So if you need to have a conversation, you could go outside the doors. But if you're going there, we'll hear those conversations too. So just be mindful of the volume in which you're speaking, and also be mindful of your bodily needs and attend to those without asking to be removed. All right. So there we go. No. I hope you can. So we're going to move now into an opportunity to hear from our commissions. We have two, and all our resource teams of our council, along with our general council commissioners. We're hopeful that we have time to go into table groups to have some conversation, and we might do that after every couple of them, not after every one. We just have a bit of over an hour, so we'll try our best. But we'll start with the support to communities of faith, and that's Jim Jackson. So they were asked to what were they asked to do? The highlights. Yes. Don't read the report. You have read the report. Jim is just going to inspire us by his presentation. Get excited you might want to join, therefore, the commission. This is, it's not too late, is it, Jim?
It's very, very crowded.
I know it's very crowded. We're sorry about that. But you might have to adjust the microphone. Yeah, I think it's a little high. There we go.
Thank you.
Oh, but you got to speak into it.
Chair Nancy.
Yes,
good
Jim.
to see you this morning. In good humor.
Yes, it's good always to see you, Jim.
I have a whole bunch of pages here that are empty and one with highlights.
Perfect.
Okay, I'd like people to turn to page, I have it marked in my book actually.
$41. Is it 41?
No, not, there we are. Page 43, if you will. Just so you have the map of the region in front of you at the bottom of the page. I think it's important always in this group to understand just how big we really are. We stretch from west of Lake Superior to just over the Quebec border, and from Lake Huron north to Highway 11 for all intents. So it's a huge, huge piece of landscape. And in that landscape, when we started, we had 96 communities of faith. I think at this point, given what's happened in the last 2 years for sure, and a bit before that, I think we're down to about 86 communities of faith and getting smaller. There's still some that have decisions to be made about disbanding and selling properties and that kind of thing. And so you just need to be aware. Oh my goodness, it's on the screen, Melody. Who knew? I was going to ask, and I thought, oh, this could be an electronic dilemma for people. So I appreciate it being on screen. I went through it as I got here this weekend, that map. And in the body of that, Gordon has put this map together in his report. Well, it's in the property resource team's report. Let me do it that way. Diane and Melody put the map together. I'm cutting into my time here.
You are. Keep talking, Jim. Don't stop.
But have a look at that in all seriousness. And what you find out is we have 32, I think, lay-led ministries, although it's hard to count on the map because some are hidden behind other arrows. And we have 25 congregations that are ministry-led, that have ministry personnel leading them. We have 12 that have disbanded or amalgamated in the last year or two. So we're very much a lay-led group of people in this region, if you look at it that way. And I just wanted to bring that to your attention, that there's a lot of folks out there. There's a lot of small congregations, and the support to communities of faith. I feel like the government guy I once was standing here saying, and I'm from the Support to Communities of Faith Commission, and we're here to help. But we can't help if we don't hear from you folks that you have issues and concerns that you would like to talk to us about, or help us, or need expertise or whatever, just to help you get over a hump, or to look at how to consider where you're going in the future. And we have now people like Kalen and others that we can call on as well to be involved in that kind of discussion. The other thing I think that's a highlight for this body is that in the executive report on page 30, I just wanted to highlight for you that, and the motion was that the Canadian Shield Executive authorizes the establishment of a property commission effective April 25th, and the current property resource team would be transitioned into this role with the terms of reference to be approved at the next executive meeting on May 30th. This is, I think, a really important step for the region, because what we found out in operating is that we were very bureaucratic in the process we had in place, because we had the property resource team doing the legwork, dealing with individual communities of faith that were in the process of selling their property, and they would do all this legwork, and then they would need to refer this to the Support to Communities of Faith Commission, and we would approve the decision. In the realty processes, we could not meet the deadlines that we were facing. And so we had to do some interesting dances in order to get the approvals through. And it was very uncomfortable, I think, for both the property resource team and for us. And so ultimately we agreed, the property resource team made a proposal. We agreed with it in the Support to Communities of Faith, and brought that proposal to the regional executive, and we have now established a commission so that they can react in a very positive and timely fashion when we get particularly into the sales of property. So I think that's a highlight for us as well this year, and I think it'll make us all feel a little better to get through that process. And the last thing I want to speak to you about is two things, really briefly. One is the annual report. We really do need that to be submitted. Some of us are I'm not sure what the tardy is probably the right word of getting our annual reports in, but it is a source that we use for trying to understand what may be happening to congregations. We do read them. And we've got something set up as we start to receive these things where we will read them
and have discussions about things in our monthly meetings. And the other thing is, there is a self-assessment report online that I actually did it with my congregation. How many have tried to do the self-assessment report? I'm just curious. It's hard to see those hands out there. Not very many people have even given it a shot. And I think it's a good tool to use to give you a chance to consider what's going on in your congregation. It's not a test. You don't have to pass it. But if you look at each of the questions on that self-assessment report, it gives you a clue about maybe where you're doing things well and maybe where you haven't done anything at all about some of the stuff that's on that report. And it gives the chance within a council meeting, a board meeting, whatever meeting you would do that in, to have a discussion about whether you want to do some of that stuff or what are the legalities of some of the things that are in that report that you should actually be responsible for that we don't know about. So I offer that up. Get your annual report in and also send in the assessment once you've done it. And I think the deadline for that is June. I think. I'm not sure. I need help with that, but there is a point in time that we should have those into us so we can look at them. I don't know if there are any questions, Nancy.
Oh, just a quick one off the top of my head. Where would they find that?
It's on the website.
Good. Under toolkits.
Yeah,
Apparently.
there's under the, I believe under Support Communities of Faith Commission on the website, and then you go down into congregational toolkits, is it? I think. I have done it.
That's right.
But that's where you go, and then there's just a whole list of things that
Okay.
may surprise you that it's there as tools for you to use in looking at your own congregation. There's a question.
There's a question online. Do we have a question online? And what is the question? Did we read that out? Do we have it? Oh, I can't read that. Jim's numbers add up to 69.
I know.
Oh, he says he knows. If we're at 8, how are the other 17 led that aren't part?
It's always good to have an accountant somewhere looking at your numbers. I looked at that and I thought, I put it down to, if you look in the Sudbury area and in the Thunder Bay area, there's a whole number of things that I don't know if you enlarge that area to a point where you would be able to pick out some other congregations that may be tucked in behind those arrows, but that's what I put the discrepancy down to.
Okay. Oh,
Melody, use a mic.
yeah, please use the microphone. It's right there. Yeah.
So the discrepancy can also be because some of these are multi-point pastoral charges, that they're served by the same minister or they're in a collaborative ministry. So you'll notice there are some different colors on that map. And the red indicates pastoral or a community of faith, not a pastoral church, but a community of faith that is lay-led. The blue indicates a community of faith that has a ministry, paid accountable minister of some sort. Yep. The green is where we're in a collaborative ministry or a student-led ministry where they're under supervision or they're under, we're working ecumenically. And the yellow is those congregations that are in transition over the last year.
Thank you, Melody.
Okay. Thank you.
Rather than going to table groups, I'm getting the sense that you're missing coming to the microphones. We don't do that a lot anymore. And maybe if you have some initial questions now, Torin, I saw your hand up. Did you have a question?
No, I was going to say the same thing Melody did.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the floor? Yes, and just come to the microphone. There's one.
There's one right
there. Yeah, that's Sandra. I think that's Sandra. Yeah, there we go.
Well, it might be partly procedure.
Say your name first.
Oh, Sandra Jenkinson.
Where you're from?
Sundridge.
Great.
And Trout Creek. I serve Sundridge and Trout Creek pastoral charges. So with annual reports, previous to Church Hub, we just sent it into the conference office. So if we load our annual report onto Church Hub, can you access it, or do we need to send a hard copy to the region?
No, we don't want a hard copy.
We
Okay.
can access from Church Hub. Staff has access to all of Church Hub.
Okay, thank
So
you.
we can download and we can share within the Support to Communities of Faith Commission.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sandra Jenkinson from Trout Creek and Serpent River.
Question.
Any other question?
Yeah. Hi,
Yes,
Steve
you-
Lowith from, I'll stand back a bit, from Thunder Bay. I just want to know how accurate this is, because should there not be 4 blues up in Thunder Bay on there? I'm just trying to understand what blue is and get an idea.
Probably that's my fault. So.
Hey, Melody, to the microphone so we can hear online.
Hi, it's Melody from the Regional Council Office. It's my Google Maps. So if you see a problem, just let me know and I will toggle it. Thank you.
It's fabulous.
Thank you. It is a great map. Yeah. All right. Any other questions for clarification? Oh, all right. Jim,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's a lot of work that commission does, and a lot of important work, and we're thankful for the care they bring to that. And let's hear from the Pastoral Relations Commission. I believe Ted Harrison is speaking. And then maybe after his report, we'll take some questions, and then maybe you can have a bit of table conversation about those 2 main commissions. Ted Harrison. Great to see you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam.
I tell you about my name, but what I know about my name is very different information from what Nancy provided about my name, which shows that her Google search didn't work out quite as well as the
Probably
due
not.
diligence I've done. Sisters and brothers, my name is Ted Harrison. I'm a member of your Pastoral Relations Commission, and I'm going to reflect briefly on the CSRC Pastoral Relations Report, which is available to you in your package. I printed it a few weeks ago, and mine is 13 pages. I think yours is, your font is probably different, so it's not quite as much, but it's a beefy report. I share this reflection with you on behalf of our outgoing chairperson, John Watson, and I would like to convey to you John Watson's regrets at being absent from this gathering. Although knowing that he is presently enjoying a vacation in Portugal, it may be that the word regret is something of an overstatement. Yes, I will resist implying that his regret is profound. So, I've got 13 pages, and so what I'm going to try to do is distill from it a kind of, it is largely a digest of actions taken by the commission on your behalf, dealing primarily with changes in pastoral relations, and those changes in pastoral relations primarily involve employment relationships, retirements, changes in terms of employment, and calls and appointments. Jim, I'm so sorry that basically what I've got is a lot of numbers, and they already you probably are feeling the heat there that your numbers aren't accurate. My numbers don't agree with your numbers. and so I'm going next year we'll have a 30-page report. All right. Okay. Well, if the numbers are wrong, Jim was blaming it on tardiness. So it's basically it's all your fault. It's neglect. So I'm going to note some matters that bear on our identity as a region of the United Church of Canada. Some of our numbers are, they're sort of they're an indicator. They're like a thermometer, a status check of how our region is doing. So, Jim said that we have 86 communities of faith. Isn't this amazing? We don't even know how many communities of faith we have. I counted, at our table, we thought maybe there was about 79 communities of faith in our area. And we are not only losing communities of faith, but we occasionally gain one. And I'll give you an example shortly. So somewhere about I don't know, between 80 and 86 communities of faith. 40 of us are under outside pastoral supervision because they do not have assigned ministry personnel. 13 pastoral charges, or I'm sorry, communities of faith are presently engaging our regional liaisons to discern their future. And so, like, you know, officially speaking, they are kind of in talks with the region, given their limited resources and their diminishing prospects of attracting permanent ministry personnel. So that's 13 pastoral charges in that process right now. We have 20 people who are sacraments elders to see that the sacraments needed by their respective communities of faith, who of course then are not, do not have ministry personnel. And in terms of LLWLs, that is licensed lay worship leaders, we have 38, most of whom are active, quite active, region-wide. And Janet mentioned earlier that there's an LLWL intake underway right now that includes 12 LLWLs in training. Yeah, it's a good sign, and we'd love to do it again. And I might add that the Reverend Kathleen McCallum is very enthusiastic about leading those, and so we gotta encourage more of that. As just one member of your Pastoral Relations Commission, I'd like to observe that our commission acts as part of that connective tissue, a thinning connective tissue between the layers of your church, between congregation and region. And as you might expect, people don't call us to share good news. It's usually, there's a presence of a fire that we're there to put out a fire, whether it's a loss, a crisis, a vacuum, an emergency, a violation of some kind. So I'm sure we all have stories about the ways that we miss presbytery. I mean, we all knew that the days of presbytery were numbered. The writing was certainly on the wall. But your Pastoral Relations Commission is one of those bodies that most acutely feels those kind of increased distances in our system and in our ethos and our polity. Okay, but let me give you a little a taste of the good news. At the same time, let me tell you that our Pastoral Relations Commission is a place where we see some of the new faces or some of the struggles to newness in the church. So we are an arm where we try to make viable new expressions of institutional faith. And we have, in modest ways, made some room for communities of faith that were previously unrecognized. And so let me provide a couple examples, again, modest examples. So, I mean, if there are people of God who can be served by the church, we're interested in finding ways for that service to happen, to be recognized and celebrated. So one example of this is the recognized chaplaincy position that is presently occupied by Tracy Davis at the Castle Home Congregate Retirement Living Facility in North Bay. And so they wanted a chaplain, and we realized, well, we need to put a minister in a place that is not a recognized form of ministry. So we need to say that Castle Home was a community of faith, right? It's not traditionally an institutional recognized form. And but we just had to encounter that on the fly and say, okay, they are a COF. It's just not the traditional kind of church that we're used to seeing. That's one example. If there are partnerships between united churches or with ecumenical partners that will serve our communities, your Pastoral Relations Commission is part of fostering those relationships. And one example of that is the shared ministry position. Is Bev here? There she is. Hi, Bev. She's like right back there. So Bev is an Anglican minister who's serving in Espanola, a joint Anglican and United Church project. And she's saying that she shared with us that it took forever to establish the terms of her employment, including insurance, was a really painful thing. Like, if she's she's ministering in the United Church, is it with the insurance that the Anglican Church provides? And it was a really painful process.
But of course, we want to get it right. We want to measure twice and cut once, because once we get it right in Espanola, this is something that presumably is sort of we've got this. We know how it will be quite transferable. And so that's Espanola is one of the many places where the United Church is attempting to do more with less, and to loosen our old institutional strictures to see the holy work get done cooperatively. On behalf of your Pastoral Relations Commission, I'd like to provide our sincere thanks to our outgoing chairperson, John Watson, who's probably getting a sunburn as we speak. He's been very faithful and attentive in his leadership of our commission. I'd like to thank our regional staff person, Reverend Rob Smith, who's over there. Yeah, he's crying in his coffee about not owning this region. And Rob has been his ongoing service, his caring attentiveness to our mandate has been great. And I would like to thank the Reverend Stuart Walker for his willingness. His name stands at the moment to step into the demanding role of future leadership of the of pastoral relations commissions in the Canadian Shield region. Madam Chair, shall we open the?
Sure. Are there any questions either online or right now amongst the gathered that Ted can respond to? Oh, there's a hand. That's Bill, I think.
That's just Bill. Bill wants to dance. You coming up, Bill?
Coming to the microphone.
Oh, I'll let you stand there, Ken.
Okay.
Just one point.
Who are you again?
Oh, I'm Bill Jones.
From?
I'm from Porcupine United Church.
Wonderful.
And the wonderful Center Timmins, which Sean should move to.
Oh, so that was a recruiting.
One error. When Bryn Carson left Cochrane, that's number 9 on your list. Rob invited me to be the supervisor, not Laura Hutchinson.
Oh, good.
Cochrane. I'm supposed to be there, right, Rob?
So item number 9, okay. Bill Jones understands that he is the pastoral supervisor of.
Do we have a fight?
I'm getting paid for it, so I better be.
So maybe Bill, you and Rob could connect to. That's great. Thank you. Any other pressing questions? Let's take 5 minutes in table groups to just talk about what you heard. And if any questions arise from that, we'll offer them to the scrutineers to pass back to those commissions. So Donna, who's our online coordinator, we're just going to go to 5 minutes. So my watch is off, I think. What is this? My 5 minutes. So at 10:16, we'll come back. Got 5 minutes. Talk amongst yourselves. Anything arise up from those 2 commission highlights that we need to pass along. And if you need to take a break, do that. We're going to shift back up to the business today. So again, if you had any questions, specific questions that you wanted directed to either Jim Jackson or Ted Harrison, just make sure you've written them down and put them in the air, high in the air, and we'll get the scrutineers to collect them and pass them on to them. I know there's one in the chat. Oh, good. Okay. And Sean is responding. That's great. Okay. Any questions for the scrutineers? My favorite words. Thank you very much, everyone. And I know that there's a question online that's being tended to by Sean Redden. So, okay. And a special thank you to the Pastoral Relations Commission and to this the Support Communities of Faith Commission. On our behalf, they do a great deal of work. So we thank them. We're shifting now to the General Counsel Commissioners, and Laura Hutchinson is going to, there's a written report in the report book, but there's also now going to be a little highlight verbal report. So I'm going to invite Laura to come forward. Looking for Laura.
I'm going to bring this down a little bit. Can everyone hear me? Pardon me? A little bit closer. Okay, there we are. It's so good to be here. I'm speaking to you about the report that was made by all of the commissioners. Could we have the commissioners to General Council 44 stand up so you can see the ones that are here? I see Peter and Whitney. There were more of us. Okay, you can be seated. And I want to thank the other commissioners because I've used your words quite freely in preparing to talk to you today. We wanted to thank you all for allowing us to represent you at General Council 44 and for your encouragement in doing that. And we wanted to let you know a little bit about our experience. We found joy in the diversity of the people we met and that we learned from, people from all over Canada and around the world, partners of the United Church who allowed themselves to be vulnerable in our presence and to share their stories so that we could learn and grow and try to make faithful decisions. We found challenges. We were challenged by COVID-19. We missed the table groups and the chances to meet in person. And we did the best we could online. We found challenge in the caution that was involved in decisions that were made on pressing issues. Yesterday, someone referred to Kairos moments. And in those urgent situations like finding a lasting peace in Israel and Palestine, after hearing from people living on both sides of that equation, we were challenged by the caution that we felt in responding to the proposals. We had elders from the Indigenous Church who were not only teaching us, but worshiping with us as well. That was a blessing. We found hope as we see the church moving forward on the path of reconciliation. And we have hope that one day communities of faith will all be affirming, that being affirming will become like breathing. It will be so natural that we don't have to talk about it, but we just live it. And we hope that General Council 45, led by the Holy Spirit, will listen, as we have been privileged to do, to the stories from the margins, and will see those people who have been unseen. And we hope that the United Church of Canada, together with our partners, and armed with bold discipleship, daring justice, and deep spirituality, will continue to do the work of grace. And I don't just mean Nancy when I say grace, but God's grace everywhere. Thank you, everyone. Are there any questions?
Yeah. Are there any questions from the court that come to mind right away? The moderator's in our midst. Wow. So why don't we take this chance to do some table groups again? We'll take another 5 minutes to do table groups. And Laura, don't go too far. But if there's anything that comes out of that we'd like to take this opportunity to ask about, a big piece of work that the commissioners have done. And it's quite a commitment. So we thank them. So let's take 5 minutes in table groups, because you will have read their full report and hopefully have kept up to date through the constant updates that we received through email and mail. Let's take 5 minutes in table groups, and I'm wondering if there's any questions that have come to mind that you would like to ask in the plenary. If not, if you'd like to write them down and just raise your hand and the scrutineers will come and collect them. Oh, Dave Legrand. And so can we just turn our attention now to the speaker? So can you identify who you are, please, and where you're from?
Hello, Madam Chair. My name is Dave Legrand. I'm from St. Andrew's United Church in Sudbury. And I'm deeply grateful to be at the table with the moderator. And I shared a bit about a conversation we had at Executive about Israel and Palestine. And I saw it mentioned, and my gosh, wherever we get talking about Israel and Palestine, there's always some conflict. And so we were acknowledging that. And I was sharing in a heartfelt way, as I did in Executive, maybe too long at length. But the moderator would be open to sharing a bit more about some of what the United Church is thinking right now about the situation in Gaza and Israel, if the moderator could be invited to speak. Or in another time?
Yes, we have time. We would make time. Yes, please. And I don't think you have to identify yourself or say where you're from. We don't know.
Hi, my name is Carmen. I am the moderator. Today I am wearing a beautiful spring green sweater. That's my new favorite. And it's got buttons down the back. It's super cool. And more flowy bamboo pants that feel like pajamas and black Converse so that you know I am. Yeah. All right. So first I'm going to talk about what the church is doing right now, or what we've been doing since General Council. In April of last year, I went to Ottawa with the Primate of the Anglican Church, the National Bishop of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Canada, and Dorcas Gordon, the former principal at Knox College, and probably the person within the Presbyterian Church who is the most informed about the conflict in Israel-Palestine. And she stood in for the moderator of the Presbyterian Church because she could not come with us. And we met with parliamentarians. We met with Michael Chong from the Conservatives. We met with Heather McPherson from the NDP, and Rob Oliphant, who many of you know is a United Church minister serving as MP for one of the Northern Toronto ridings, and is also the parliamentary secretary for Foreign Affairs. And he pulled together a group of parliamentarians that sit on the Foreign Affairs Committee. And we pleaded with them and said, the situation is unbearable for Palestinians, and without moving forward and without international advocacy for a just and lasting peace and an end to the military occupation, there will be violence, and it is coming, and it is coming soon. We're hearing this from our partners on the ground. The next week, Heather McPherson submitted a proposal that asked the Parliamentary Committee on Foreign Affairs to engage in a renewed study of the conflict, because they had not studied it in any real way since the Oslo Accords. It's been almost 20 years. We wrote letters of advocacy and asked Anjepi and other networks across the church to write to their MPs to support the proposal. It got passed. And my impression of our current government is that they're very, very slow to take action on anything. And so before October, there was no further action. Of course, like we went into summer, and they all like go back and take vacation and are based in their constituencies. And so it was very soon after they reconvened in September that the attacks happened. And we wrote a letter to the Prime Minister's office immediately afterwards condemning the Hamas actions, and also pleading for there not to be collective punishment, and to not have an arm, and other than securing that border where the attacks happened, to not have further armed escalation of armed attacks on Gaza. We had no response from that letter. In November, at the joint meeting of the National Indigenous Council and the General Council Executive, Leanne Shimoda, who was then chair of the National Indigenous Council, and I wrote on behalf of our two bodies and said, we're concerned about the potential for genocide. We really urge the Prime Minister, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and all of our MPs to speak up, to advocate for an immediate ceasefire and a sustained and lasting peace in the Middle East. We've still had no response to that letter, although that did provoke Canada Israel Jewish Affairs to not talk to me anymore. I made a video. I went back to Toronto for one day just to make a video in studio about what was currently happening and what folks could do. And then this spring, we have continued to advocate. We have a new government relations position in the United Church. It's a new staff position in the General Counsel office. Her name is Emily. Her last name has escaped me right this moment, but she's coming over from Kairos. And so she's actually based in Ottawa and will be able to do relationship building and advocacy on any political issues or public policy issues that we want to engage with the federal government on, which we're very excited about. We've continued to work with Kairos and with our partners to participate in coalition building. The message we got really clearly from the federal government is it's not enough for the United Church to talk to us on their own. Anytime that you can have interfaith partnerships, public, other public partnerships with private citizens groups or things like that, the more coalition building that you can do, the more effective it is in terms of how we can listen to you. And your members need to write to their MPs. And I would say our members need to write to their MPs and identify themselves as members of the United Church of Canada, right? Because it adds weight to whatever we say when people can say, yeah, that's true. I'm hearing that from my people who are members of the United Church. Because I think we have a very high percentage, probably per capita, of people who are politically engaged in their own ridings, but maybe not always claiming their identity as a member of the United Church, and that this is a reason that's important to me. We are participating in the Kairos prayer pilgrimage to Ottawa. And so I will be participating with other church leaders, attending personally in Ottawa on May 22nd and 23rd. We're trying really hard to meet with parliamentarians again. In the meeting in April, we also met with the senior desk staff people from Global Affairs Canada, so the actual civil servants that are working on diplomatic relations with Israel and Palestine. That being said, there is, we're working within the legacy of the history, as you said, Dave, of this conflict. We haven't resolved ourselves as a denomination about where we stand. So like you mentioned in our table group, the Presbyterian Church in the US, probably I think the Anglicans and Lutherans in Canada are much further along in terms of their consensus around their position on Palestine, Israel. And we have historically gotten into a lot of pretty acrimonious debate about the conflict. And I was chatting with the presiding bishop of the Church of Norway the other day, and he was saying that, they're able to do some pretty good advocacy as well, but addressing the Christian nationalism within the Lutheran Church in Norway is one of their biggest challenges. Not Christian nationalism, Christian Zionism, sorry. And I think that is alive and well here. The General Secretary and I met with a group of concerned folks who sort of across different networks of people who are concerned about what's happening. Had a small group of folks like Harry O'Soren and Susan Ferguson and can't remember a couple of other people. They were the primary two, but we've also met with Njepi in the last year to talk about the context that we're in. And so I want to go back and address what happened at GC 44, because that's sort of the genesis of this conversation. So the way that the church has worked for the last several decades is that we're at the general council level, is we're very, very policy driven. You may have noticed that we elect these amazing moderators who we love and appreciate for like who they are as individuals and the wisdom that they have to speak to us. And then all of our public statements are sort of like very policy based, right? We lose some of that and it becomes sort of like comms policy based statements that go out about particular issues. We're trying through the proposals that came from Tickif and the General Secretary to move, in terms of our justice work, to move not to a policy-based way of working, but to have the General Council affirm a principles-based approach, which allows us to be more nimble, right? So we don't have to actually approve the exact wording of what our policy or our stance is on a particular justice issue. It frees up our senior staff. It frees up our regional council executive ministers, the General Secretary, and me to speak truth to power in a way that we hope will be more prophetic. So we had the principles-based approach to justice in general. There was one proposal that came for that. And then there was another proposal, because of the urgency of this ongoing 70-year conflict in the Middle East, to do a principles-based approach on Israel-Palestine. At the same time, we had some very faithful, passionate folks across different regions, across different networks in the church who moved to trying to change our policy to include BDS, like boycott, divestments, and sanctions, naming Israel as an apartheid state, and which would be a change in policy, which is sort of at odds with the direction that we were trying to go with moving away from policy. I had the pleasure / penance of serving on the Way Forward Committee of General Council. So one of the things that we've done differently over the last two general councils is we have less debate on the floor of the court of the church. People meet in small groups with a facilitator and a note taker, they're supposed to discuss all of the proposals. I don't think we've made that expectation as clear as it needed to be, but they're supposed to discuss all of the proposals, send all of the notes from those discussions to the Way Forward Committee, and then the Way Forward Committee would meet, read all of the notes, and try to reflect back to the church what they're hearing from everybody. And it's a process that's designed to try and hear the fullness of the court and not just the loudest voices that are standing at the microphone. That in itself has been challenging, that culture change. And so there were people who were very passionate about the proposals on Israel-Palestine that held back because they thought, well, I'll say something when it gets to the floor. And had sort of like missed their opportunity, and that caused its own sort of like procedural conflict. And because the views were so diverse, and because there hadn't been coordination between the networks who were advocating for Palestine and the work that was happening at the General Council level around these principles-based approaches, there wasn't really a way to move forward, especially when we were also constrained to meeting on Zoom. And so what we proposed, based on what we were hearing from the table groups, is that we didn't support moving forward on the policy changes, and that there was more work to do on the principles-based approach. And because of the interactions that had happened with the representatives from Canada Israel Jewish Affairs when they were presenting, and there was an unfortunate situation that happened where something offensive was said off, like somebody's mic was on when it shouldn't have been, while the external relations, it was not funny. It was a really, really, like, he went ballistic. He threatened to like go to the press and to say that the United Church was still anti-Semitic. And it was a really, really unfortunate situation that also complicated us moving forward. I do hope that at our next General Council that we are able to adopt the principles-based approach, and that we're going to continue to engage with the wider church so they understand that this actually frees us up to do the exact things that we get called on by the church to do. And like, the General Council office doesn't always represent the whole church, because we are very congregationalist at heart. And So I think it's also important for us to continue to do things at our congregational level, at our regional levels, and at the general council level, that the more that we can do all of those things together, the more that we can participate. So I love that. I was actually thinking this morning, sitting here, like, how am I going to get my extra 9,000 steps? And it's going to be tomorrow afternoon after church, I think. We are also, if you haven't joined the Mods Book Squad, one of the books that is in the back in the book room is a book called The Wall Between by Raja Khoury, who is a former chair of the Canadian Arab Federation and the founder of the Canadian Arab Institute, and Jeffrey Wilkinson, who is an American Jewish psychologist living and working in Toronto. And they wrote a book about like the challenges that Jews and Palestinians in the diaspora have talking to each other about the conflict. It's an excellent resource, and they were my guests on the Mods Book Squad. And if you register on United in Learning on ChurchX, you can go back and rewatch that video. The book club is designed as an evergreen resource so that people can use it in their congregations or catch up when they want to. I'm also going to start next week planning with our church and mission team to host, to create 2 additional courses on the United in Learning platform. One is the first one will be a prerequisite to the second, but it will really be like a series of conversations with different thinkers on the conflict without discussion, but just like share with us your perspectives, your history, your learning as a resource for the church. And then the second one, you have to have completed all of the pieces of the first one. And the second one is in the fall, that then I will host national conversations within the church about what we learned in the first thing, so that we're all kind of working with the same information and can start from there to bring together sort of maybe more divergent views within the church. And then we will continue at the general council, like with, in the general council office, to say yes wherever possible to continue to advocate for just peace. The only thing that I have changed my schedule to make myself available for conversations. It's the only thing I've changed my schedule to make myself available to go to Ottawa, to be available for conversations. And I will continue to do that. There was something else I was going to say about it. Dropped like a stone in water, as my mother would say. Yeah. But yeah, continue to raise your voices within the church and to our government. Yeah, Glenn. You have to go to a microphone, I think, so our friends online can hear you. And so people in this room can hear you.
I know, I'm a quiet guy. It's Glenn Eagle, Willow Grove over here. I was going to present, and this is to me some good news. I was going to present a motion asking the United Church to divest. And so ran it past Carmen, and as far as she knows, the United Church already is divested of Israeli. You can say more on that, but I thought that was a bit of good news for the United Church.
Yeah. So I'm not sure about the full BDS list in terms of some of the transnational corporations like Caterpillar, Puma, SodaStream, things like that. And I think, given how our funds are invested, some of those things we might have small holdings through mutual funds and things like that. But Eric Matheson, the financial officer for the General Counsel Office, did check with our finance managers. And as far as he knows, companies that are directly profiting from the occupation, we do not hold any equities in those companies at this point. And as far as I know, that's only speaking for our reserve funds and our investments in the General Counsel Office. It might be different with the foundation and with the pension board. So if you are a member, either retired or an active member of the pension, I think you can write to your pension reps or send messages to Alan Hall, who's the staff lead on supporting, his team supports the administration of the pension. If you want to make sure that our pension and also the foundation have also made similar divestments, you can do that. There's no constraint on doing that without a policy on BDS. And my experience of having served on the pension board is that our managers try and say that, like, we actually don't have a say in how we invest our money. And I think it's time to take our power back around that. I'm really proud of the work the United Church does, working with the Shareholder Association for Research and Education and doing shareholder advocacy. I do think shareholder advocacy can be more effective than divestment in certain circumstances, but there are principle-based decisions we can make around that we've already made around not profiting from alcohol, sale of arms, tobacco. I don't know where we stand on cannabis. I'm assuming it's the same. But we also, I think, can demand that our pension not invest in things that we don't feel good about. And they need probably to hear from our members more. So hopefully that was a good comprehensive answer. But it's
Thank you so much. We've set aside time on Sunday morning as well if there's any additional questions for our moderator, and she's been very open to say I'm available for that. So we know we have more time with her, and this might be an opportunity to give some more thought to what you've heard, to be able to bring that back for discussion. But thank you so much. Right Relations team and the Affirming team. I'm switching the order up a bit. We'll have those two teams come up next and present their highlights. So it's Whitney Bruno, followed by Peter Haddo.
And would Tech kindly see if Lisa Blaze is available to join us online?
Oh, Lisa Blaze.
So I am Whitney Bruno, and I'm part of the Right Relations team. To give you a couple highlights for our team, we got out the vote. You may have been called by one of us as we tried to be sure that every congregation submitted their vote for Remit 1 and that we provided all the education for you. I say that, way to go. You all rock. We have very, very few churches that did not vote. We also put out a podcast series on the United Church's role in residential schools. And if you have not heard that, go and listen to it. It's wonderful. We taught, and we still do teach on land acknowledgements, provide reading lists, including a list of Indigenous music, and provide oversight over the Manitou art collection. So, have you heard of that? If not, let me tell you a little bit. In 1988, Dr. David Humphreys and Molly Petria gifted the Manitou Conference what has become known as the Manitou Art Collection. You see two of those works right here. These are original works by First Nation artists and are held in trust by the United Church, but go out to congregations. They're an opportunity for healing and bridge building. Each time one becomes available through churches closing or amalgamating, they are rehomed through an application process to another congregation. We had 2 paintings to rehome, and we had so many wonderful applications, but there were only 2 paintings. So, do I need a drum roll, or does everyone know? First here, we have a painting by Stanley Panamick. He is Anishinaabe of Chagin First Nation on Manitoulin Island, or Medomisim. And this painting is called Lost in Flock. It's the painting in front of me that has 2 birds flying up in brown. This painting shall be homed at Willow Grove. The second painting up here is called Tobacco Offering, and it is by Leland Bell, who's Anishinaabe of Wicomican unceded First Nation territory, which is Manitoulin Island, Adawamites. This painting shall be homed at Massey United Church. And we have a display out in the hallway, and I invite you to go out, learn more, and please, if this is the kind of work that interests you, we have vacancies and are looking for others to assist us in forging right relations with all people. Thank you.
Thank you, Whitney. We're going to hear from Peter Haddo now, from the affirming resource team, and then we'll see if there's any questions for either of them. Peter Haddo, coming up to the microphone.
Okay, my report in the book is not 30 pages and is not 13 pages. It's 3 pages, or I should say 2 pages, and written in very big font. My name is, in case you don't know who I am, my first name is Peter. I have no idea why my mother called me that. My second name is John, and I'm named after my grandfather, whose name is Jack, and I don't really understand that either. I go by the pronouns he and him. In my house, where I live with my husband, my pronoun, he calls me the Queen, and he is my humble servant. So all kidding aside, when it comes to pronouns, it's a big deal for a lot of people. And what comes to my mind is, who do you say I am? Who do you say I am? And I think it's important that we get pronouns right. And it's okay if we make mistakes. I do it all the time. So to keep me focused on what I'm going to talk about, I brought up 2 boxes of Band-Aids. And the Affirming Ministry Resource Team is not a Band-Aid solution to problems. The Affirming Resource Team is here to help to guide the Regional Council through the required affirming process as recognized by Affirm United. And that's what our mandate was when we first started. And we consist of we're supposed to consist of 8 to 10 members. And I'm very grateful of the members I do have. It has evolved since we started. The number of churches since we became a region has not evolved much. However, I'm going to recognize the churches because I think they need to be recognized. Emmanuel United Church in Sault Ste. Marie, St. Andrews in North Bay, St. John's in Marathon, St. Paul's in Thunder Bay, St. Peter's in Sudbury, and Westminster United in Thunder Bay. And I'm so grateful for these affirming churches. What I want to brag about now is that since we started, we had COVID, and there wasn't much movement in our affirming prospects of churches. But since COVID has finished, there is now 3 churches. One that's going to become affirming at the end of May, which I'm so happy to be a part of going and presenting them with their recognition from Affirm United. There is another church who have been discussing and discerning over becoming affirming for a while, and hopefully they will become affirming in the near future. And then recently, I received an email from Rob Smith from another church that is going to start the process about discerning to become affirming. Those are the highlights of my affirming team, and I'm so happy about it. So the Band-Aids. The Band-Aids are going to talk about the struggle. I'm going to talk about the struggles we have. The struggles that we've had as an affirming team recently since the end of COVID. We've had to deal with a lot more hate, more public hate, more online hate. Affirming churches had to deal with that. As a team, I have received emails that have been somewhat questionable about their what they say. I know that I live in North Bay, and I've gone to 2 protests. So our word was heard and we were visible, but the numbers, we outnumbered them, thank God, about 10-1. But words hurt. And I identify myself as gay and Christian, also queer and Christian, because I like the word queer, although some people may not like it. But during these protests, people had signs saying, "My God loves me. My God created me. My God created me in his own image." And the funny thing was, this one guy passed me and I said, "Stop for a minute. I want to read your sign." And when I read it, I said, "You know what? My God loves me. And my God created me." Now, I'm not complaining. There were quite a few people from congregations in North Bay that came out, and from other areas, from United Churches, did come out. What worries me is when I ask certain people, when I've talked about it at churches, people have said to me, "Well, I'm afraid to go out. I'm afraid to go out." I said, "But you don't have to walk with us. You can stand in the background. You can stand during Pride, you can stand on the sidewalk and just be there and we see your presence." And this woman said, "But I'm afraid." And I said, I understand that you might be afraid to go out and protest. And I'm not asking you to protest. What I'm asking is, when you have a Pride event in your community, at least if you stand there and show support, it means a lot. It means a lot to us. Because every day there is somebody you know and may not know that is a member of the 2S LGBTQ community who puts their life in danger every time they walk out the door. So I want you all to help become Band-Aids, to help heal. So I'm going to end with thanking my wonderful team. Caitlin Smithers from St. Andrews and North Bay, Charles Bauduc from Sudbury, Harry Stewart, who is sharing the table outside with me, Marilyn Schlitzer, who's on vacation in England, the wonderful Ryan Fay from Sudbury, Susan Marrier, Susan Peverly, Whitney Bruno, and of course, our regional resource staff member, Rob Smith, and the wonderful Celio, who's back there, and the wonderful hoodie, rainbow colors. I'd like to thank you all. And I'd like to thank all the people who have shown up for our workshops that we've had online. In fact, the numbers at our last workshop that we had, town hall meeting, was the most people we've ever had at a meeting. And it shows that you do care and you are concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. I'm just wondering if there's any questions for either Whitney from the Right Relations Resource Team or Peter from the Affirming Resource Team. If you have a question for them, but you don't want to ask it in the forum, or you're not quite sure how to shape the question, write it down. Scrutineers can pick it up and pass it along. But if there's any questions right now. No. Thank you, Peter and Whitney, for all the important work that the two resource teams do. Okay, now we have Gord Roberts, who's going to go to mic 1. He's speaking on behalf of the Property Resource Team, and he'll be followed by Nancy Rubel, who'll be speaking on behalf of the Mission Support Grants team. Gord.
It's my report.
Okay, we're going to just turn the microphone around so you can see Gord's smile. Or maybe. Look at how well you pivot, Gord. That's good.
And transitioned. My name's Gordon Roberts, and thanks to the executive I'm the chair or lead of the new property commission. I want to thank the executive for making sure that we could make a decision once, having dealt with a property matter, rather than needing to have it twice. And I also want to thank the executive for, in this particular occasion, making me the new kid on the block when it comes to executive. Been a long time since I've been a new kid on the block. I've also, in the course of my ministry, learned that things don't function by this Robert's Rule of Order. So for all of those of you who think Robert's Rules of Order is really important, it isn't. I know that there's at least one person among you that feels that the basis of my report should be, well, tell me how much money has come to the region as a result of the property sales. Well, I would direct that person to the budget line that shows property sales and accrued accounts. That takes into effect all the money. If you could put up on the screen the map that shows where we are and where we've been, I think that will tell the story. Every one of those dots tells a story. If you could bring my bag over to me. I've been on the Property Resource Team Commission since the inception of this region in 2019. One of the first cases we dealt with was the whole story around St. Paul's United in Manitowoc. I was the minister at St. Paul's in Manitowoc from 1980 to 1982. Where are you, Bill? I followed him in ministry at St. Paul's in Manitowoc. I got this cross, see, from the Evan Hill family in Manitowoc in that time. And that helps me to remember. I learned along the way that things always have a story to them, and every one of those dots has at least one story attached to it. So would you like to put that on it? Thank you, my able assistant. Our meeting this weekend is entitled On This Rock or Upon the Rock. Well, don't drop it on your foot, but here's the rock. All right, your golf balls. Logan brought them back from Scotland for me. They bear the logo of the old course at St. Andrews. These golf balls are about as close as I'm going to ever get to the old course at St. Andrews. That puts me in mind of my friend, Stuart Bell, who was a longtime minister and executive secretary of Management Conference. Last weekend, we celebrated his life, and I'm really, really grateful to all the stewards in all of our congregations and all of our communities of faith who have added so much. And all those people who are absolutely convinced that the music of the pipes and the sound of a Scottish brogue are really the sounds of God made at work. And I will not insult Stuart or you by trying to say that with a brogue. Now, one of the congregations that we've worked with, can I have a glass of water? Thank you. Was Chalmers in South River. They were incredibly proud people. They worked very hard over the generations to build up their church, to build up their sanctuary. And as that church closed, I was very conscious of having worked with them, very conscious of their story, and very conscious that in the brickwork at the front of their building was a cross. Now, that church is no longer used as a worship space in their community. But the whole place is now come to a place where they could release much of their worship furniture, and it's now found at Grace United in Sudbury. Aaron, it's true. All right. Very conscious of, for instance, Sheikh Winda on Manitoulin Island. And prior to being on this committee, I didn't know there was a Sheikh Winda, and I didn't know where it was. I beg your pardon? Well, Sheikh Winda, we have pictures, and Melody can show you of Sheikh Winda's final service. And the people there are smiling because they've gathered together to celebrate the ministry of their place. We also have the picture of the vacant site where Sheikh Winda was. They are now, as I understand it, many of them worshiping at Little Current again on Manitoulin. So I cannot say that Sheikh Winda is closed. Now, maybe to show how old many of us are, how many of you ever did here's the church, here's the steeple here. Try it. Flexibility. Yeah. Lillian can show you how to do it. One of the other churches that we dealt with was Holy Trinity in Elliott Lake. Very proud people, incredibly proud people. Now, when their church closed, they sent their baptismal font to Trinity in North Bay. Now, Diane, who were the first children? Diane's still in the court. Who were the first people to be baptized from that font?
My dear colleague Melody delivered the font from Holy Trinity Elliott Lake to Trinity United Church in North Bay the very Sunday that my twin boys, Felix and Christian, were baptized at Trinity in North Bay. So my sons were the first to be baptized at Trinity North Bay in the font that came from Holy Trinity Elliott Lake.
And last Sunday, I attended worship at Trinity in North Bay. I'm looking for the name. I got the name. Henry. Now, Henry was the 5th generation of his mother's family to be baptized at Trinity in North Bay. Now, is Janice Brownlee in the congregation or in this our assembly? Who is Henry to you? And if I saw his face correctly, he's in the midst of teething, but boy, was he well behaved, even in the midst of teething. So if anybody thinks we're a committee that does only administrative stuff, I can tell you that's not true. If you're thinking we're a church, we're a committee that has responsibility for selling churches and for raising money, that ain't true. We're applied practical theology raised to the extreme. And I'm glad to say that we're maybe remembering a ministry and communities and congregations that are alive and well and kicking. So keep the good work going. Now, whoops. As you're able, would you please stand? Would you join with me in a standing ovation, first of all, to yourselves? A standing ovation for all the Stu Bells in our congregations who over the years have made all sorts of ways and all sorts of contributions to our communities, to life of our communities. To Stanley, Arthur, Henry, and Felix, and Christian, and all the generations still to come, and who they are going to find that faith is alive and well and living in Northern Ontario. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Very much, Gord. We're just going to hear quickly from Nancy Rubel, who's with the resource team, for the mission support grants, and then we'll see if there's any questions. But thank you so much. That was very moving. Nancy Rubel.
Hi, I'm Nancy Rubel from East Core Maxwell United Church here in Sault Ste. Marie. And just before I get started, you know what my name means, but you don't know that my mother gave it to me because she thought it was unique. And I've met many Nancys over the years, and they're all wonderful. And also, before I begin, who knew that listening to reports could be so inspiring? I am very glad to be part of this church. Money is important. So are rules and forms to be filled out and discussions about how we move forward as individual church communities and various clusters. You might think that is what our Mission Grants Resource Team is all about. We review applications, we look at the balance of money we are able to share, we meet with individuals or groups of people if we are unsure of any part of their ask. We discuss and we question. We oversee grants and loans and review others in order to send on applications for approval. It might seem cut and dried, not too exciting, just a helping hand when needed. But in reality, it is so much more. We meet on Zoom, and most of us have never met in person. Our first chair, Diane Trollope, perfected the art of FaceTime caring. At each meeting, we check in with one another, something that our current chair, Dave Clark, has continued with his own gentle approach to caring. Although Diane was suffering from her own health challenges, her genuine, prayerful concern for each person on the team drew us out of whatever shell a computer screen might impose. We told stories, we prayed, we laughed, and yes, sometimes we shed a tear as we learned about each team member. In between meetings, Diane sent us her poetry. It was clear that we had become friends, not just fellow team members who met once a month. The bond that we have shared as a team helps us ask questions or share concerns as we review applications. We are not afraid to be honest with one another. We also share our enthusiasm when we learn about the various ideas that different churches are promoting to share God's love with others. In the midst of the dollars and cents that we thought this team was all about, we have discovered forward-thinking hope, excitement about opportunities, and respect and friendship with others from across the many kilometers of this region. We have lost and gained members. If you look online, you will see the names of the original team members. But currently, we are the following: Dave Clark, Chair; Susan Sisker, Christine Paul, B. Webb, and me, Nancy Rubel, under the loving and knowledgeable guidance of Melody Duncanson Hales and Diane Matheson Jimenez. I continue to be amazed when I hear about groups of people in the world whose political and personal differences prevent camaraderie and cooperation, interfering with productivity. I guess those groups don't have the faith, resources, and good people that the Grants Committee has. Thank you, team members. Thank you, Canadian Shield Regional Council and the United Church of Canada. But most of all, thank you to God for showing us a way to be about more than money. God is good.
Thank you, Nancy. And just quickly, are there any questions, specific questions you might have for Gord or for Nancy? If not verbally, if you could write them down and hand them off to either of them, or the scrutineers, that would be helpful. Okay. Kathy Smith is already up at the front. Kathy Smith has a lot to say.
Not today.
Good.
Slight change in the order. Just a reminder that nominations close at noon, and the nominations team, please know that we will be gathering in the Harmony Room to go over the nominations and do the work that we are called to do. So at this time, I'd like to introduce to you someone else who is in the court, Diane Bozeman. There she is. Diane is actually from the General Counsel office, and she invites you to chat to her about nominations because she is the guru of nominations for the General Counsel. So she'd love to have a chat with you. Thanks for being with us, Diane. Now, we've had a request from the good folks at the church in Wawa. They are looking for Voices United CDs and wondering if folks are no longer using them, and they could sure put them to good use. So if you have something, I invite you to speak to Lois Dory. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And Lois is at table 12. She'd love to speak to you about that. So when Melody has done her open session here, lunch is served in the buffet right behind you in a buffet style again. So you are invited to go and pick up your plate and come back into this space and enjoy the delicious food that has been prepared for you. Okay. So that's for this afternoon, right? Okay. Okay, don't forget your name tag because that's your golden ticket to the meal, right? Now, we will gather back here at 1 o'clock. There'll be one piece of music played, and then you will have the opportunity to hear from those that are nominated for chair-elect. Okay, now I have something else. I'm told that the moderator would like you to ask people, that's me, I guess, to have at least one internet accessible device, a phone, a laptop, a tablet, or something else to write on at their tables. And something else. And something else to write on at their tables. I guess she needs that during her plenary sessions. So if folks could do that, who's ever taking in that session with Carmen, that would be wonderful. Thank you for that. So I think I'm done, Chair Nancy. Thank you.
That's wonderful. There's a slight delay before the green light comes on. I think you like. Did you announce that nominations were closed? Or closing? That's really important. Really.
That was the first thing
I thought
said,
it
Nat.
was too. I
Yeah.
thought it was too.
Nominations close at noon. I can hear them ringing.
Yeah. We just wanted to stress that one. So Melody, Duncanson Hales. Oh, as you come up, I just want to point out on page 60, 27 of the report book, that's where you'll find the digest of actions that your executive did, followed by an accountability report. We hope you had a chance. If you have any questions about that, again, write them down and drop them here at the head table, and we'll address those. Now over to you.
Okay.
Melody, Duncanson Hales.
So we're going to have a conversation about good news. We have had a great morning of sharing amazing stories. And as your stewardship support staff, as your minister, I'm your minister. My role here is to help us practice how we're going to share our good stories. So how do I do this? I hope I have this right. I can go like this. Oh, look it. There's me. And my name is Melody, and it means melody. And I got my name because my mom likes to sing. So there you go. I'm your stewardship support staff and your community of faith support staff person. And thank you to the chair for the time to have these conversations with you. Just as we've heard a lot this morning, I just want to invite folks that are on Zoom and folks at the table group. I'd like us to name within our spaces one thing that we are grateful for today. Let's ground ourselves in some gratitude. What are we grateful for? What have we heard? What are we experiencing? What's one thing that we are grateful for today? Let's share that for a couple of minutes in our table groups. And online, you can put that into the chat. So what's one thing you are grateful for today? And I'll know you're ready to engage when I see your faces here in the room. I'm wondering what's happening on the chat. Sean, do you see people naming some of the things that they're grateful for today? Wonderful. I see some people laughing. Fantastic. Well, there's a lot of things that I am grateful for. But one of the things that I am grateful for is mission and service. And I would really like to share with you about mission and service today. You guys are talking, right? I'd really like to share with you about mission and service, but I'm gonna do it in a way, and I'm gonna do it two ways. How am I going to share about mission and service? I'm going to do two ways to talk about mission and service, and see if you can tell the difference in the stories. Hey, Susan. Hey, Susan. Hey, I really like mission and service, but do you know, I think that we could do better about mission and service. It's, there's so many things in the world that are happening. And I don't know if maybe if we just did a little bit, I don't know. There's so much we could do. I just feel sometimes overwhelmed. I don't know. What do you think about, we try so hard about mission, and it's like maybe we could try a little bit harder to do it, but maybe we're just doing all that we can. I think we're just doing as much as we could do. Maybe we don't need to talk about mission service anymore. Do you feel it all connected to that? Not really. Okay. Let me try this again. I'll click that. So let me tell you, Susan, there are a lot of things happening in the world, but Susan, can you imagine what it would be like to have a family that's in the middle of a conflict, to have little children that you want to go to school and to be part of things? And maybe, can you imagine what it'd be like to be in a refugee camp in the midst of chaos and conflict? Can you think of, like, we have kids, you and I, right? And what it was like for us to have our kids in safety, and we could take them to kindergarten class. Did you know, Susan, that you could help a family in Lebanon, a family that you've never met, that you could help them get their kids to kindergarten? Like, how amazing is that you could be part of that, that you could be really, that's a problem that you could make different. You could be part of a solution. How cool is that? That is really cool. You know how you can do it? That is really cool. You know how you can do that? You can give through mission and service. It's so easy. And there's so many ways you could do that. You could make a difference. See these pictures? You could make a difference in that kid's life today. Today. Susan, would you like to join with me in making a difference? Yeah. So just curious, what was the difference? Any difference that you saw on how to tell a story? Right? Yeah, a little bit, right? So here's the thing. We've heard a lot of stories. The whole idea is that we're people of story. We are people of story, and stories are powerful. Do you know how powerful stories are? Oh, well, yes, exactly. That's exactly where I was going with this, because a long time ago, there was somebody who told such amazing stories that inspired so many people around that person. And they said, how can we be part of these things? How can we make a difference? And even after his presence changed with that group of people, they told a story, and they invited people, and they inspired people. And I am looking at a whole group of people whose lives have been changed by that story. Think about that. We would not be here if it wasn't for the power of story. It is a powerful way to bring us together. And it is especially important for us in the church. For us all as leaders, stories are not the same as reporting. We've already understood that today. Stories are about creating strong connections and a feeling of belonging. When we share stories of how our ministries change lives, we're doing more than just giving out information. We are making an invitation for others to be about the bigger story. And this kind of sharing, where people feel included and important and valued and appreciated, is what our church is built on. So learning how to tell stories really well can change how we invite and inspire people's generosity for the sake of the common good. Good storytelling changes people's hearts, can lead them into action. And so today you are all going to practice how to tell a story. All right? You are going to practice how to share your good news. And this skill, it needs practice. It really needs practice in our church, in our communities. And it's super important because it helps show why our ministry matters in a way that connects people and inspires and invites action. So, good stories are important. They inspire and invite. Let me tell you something. Whenever I'm meeting with a congregation, we talk about generosity, people say it's about their ability to give. And we hesitate to invite generosity because we get caught up in trying to figure out whether other people can afford to give or give more of themselves. And so we don't like talking about generosity, which is something Jesus has already called us to. And the truth is, here's the truth about generosity. We don't make our decisions on giving based on what we can afford. We base our decisions on how we are motivated to give because we make choices. with our gifts. The number one motivation for people to get involved and contribute to a church community is because they feel moved through the heart, through compassion. And the second motivation comes from a feeling of belonging, of being response-able, of being in relationship with people we care about. So being generous has nothing to do with what we can afford and everything to do with how we are inspired and how we connect. So why does our story matter? And how does our story connect us with God and with each other? Recently, some of you may have seen the news that David Armour, who is former executive minister around philanthropy, has recently passed. And I just want to name that he brought some amazing skills and some amazing ways of thinking about generosity and gratitude to those of us who worked with him. And one of the things he did was he invited us to connect with nonprofit groups, people in the secular community who are also working for the common good. And through him, I met someone, I was in a workshop with someone named Tom Ahern. And Tom is a communications specialist. And I just want to share briefly, some of the things that make for good stories. And I want you to pay attention to these things because you're going to practice them in a minute. This can profoundly impact how we connect and communicate within our ministries and beyond. The first thing is to put the listener at the heart of the story. Can we make them the hero of the narrative? It's about shifting the focus from what I am doing to what you can do. It allows others to see themselves as part of a story and to feel directly involved in the success of the story. The second thing he talks about is about engaging emotions. We are all human, and the thing that we share in common is that common language of emotions, feelings such as hope or urgency or gratitude that engages the other's feelings, and it fosters an emotional connection with the story being told and with the teller. And finally, stories need to be told with clear, relatable language that anyone can understand and connect with. We can use vivid imagery and specific details to make stories more memorable and impactful. We can paint a clear picture and let our listeners see the story unfold. And that makes stories stick in our hearts and in our heads. And this is what people carry with them after they've heard a good story. So yesterday, our moderator shared with us a little book that how fabulous. That guy name is that came up with this. His name is Benjamin Zander. As we said, a former conductor of the Boston Philharmonic, wrote this great book with his partner named The Art of Possibility. And he talks about this, that there exists in our world a lot of downward spiral speaking. Let's see if this resonates. The older people in our church are all dying, and so there's not going to be any more church. Kids don't learn about Jesus anymore, and all they do is play video games, and they're not going to grow up to love the church. The denomination isn't supporting, and the region doesn't support us, and we have to do it. We're going to run out of money, and we can't do the church. Look at my body when I'm talking this way. I don't know about you, but if I'm in a room without for about 10 minutes, I need the oxygen. Yeah. Why would I ever want to be part of that? There are downward spirals everywhere. I mean, look at our news media. It's amazing how many downward spirals we see every day. And wherever we see winners or losers, there is an automatic downward spiral. No wonder we feel anxious. Is there any alternative? Is there any different way to live? What do you think, church? I mean, why are you here in the first place, right? So I'm pretty sure Jesus had something to say about this. Of course there is, right? Our storyteller, our great storyteller, preaches something about hope and resurrection and possibility. And this is where we are invited by Jesus Christ to set up camp. And this is where our holy vision is. And vision is very important. We get confused in our vision sometimes. Is it our vision to be the last church standing? Is it our vision to be the winner? Or is our vision saying that we are losers? Is our vision to have the biggest bank account? For a vision to be holy and sacred, the vision has to be for everyone. For everyone. How would you walk and how would you talk and how would you feel if everyone had value and had a gift to share that would make a positive change for God's beloved world, but they just haven't found out about it yet? The world of the downward spiral and the world of possibility are two different places. Where do you belong? And how do you know if you're in the world of possibilities? How do you know if you are in the world of hope and vision and life? You look in your listener's eyes. You look into each other's eyes. And this is not mine. This is from Benjamin Zander. He says this: we look into each other's eyes, and if the eyes are shining, we know we're in the world of possibility. If our eyes are shining, we're in the world of possibility. Sometimes it feels as if we could light up a whole city with a light in our eyes. If the eyes are shining, we know we are doing it. We tell our stories to help each other find our value, to encourage each other, to bring our gifts together, to make a positive change in God's beloved world. That is it. That is why stories matter. And you're going to practice this right now. So I want you to take a few minutes, not very long. You've got hopefully a piece of paper and a pen handy. If you don't, there were some mission service pens out there. They're circulating through the group. Think about a ministry in your community. Maybe it's within the walls of your church, maybe it's outside. It needs to make a difference. You can think about that one person it's making a difference to. Maybe it's making a difference to you. What is the purpose of that ministry? Who is there? Who are the people? And what does it feel like? And as you think about that story, maybe write down a couple of points. How will you invite someone else to be the hero in that story? So just take a few minutes now, quietly, write that down. So I'm hearing some people want to tell that story. I hear people wanting to tell that story. Are you ready to tell that story? No, I'm serious. If I'm hearing people, like if you're like, I'm ready to tell that story. I can't stop from it because it's awesome and amazing. Well, go tell that story. Go tell that story. If we're ready online, if people have had enough time to think about the story, we're going to invite you into breakout groups of 2. And here in this space, find someone a friend you haven't met. I want you to share your stories with each other. We're going to have 3 minutes. 3 minutes to tell the story. 3 minutes. So you can get up and move around as you're able. If you're not able, stay put. Hopefully somebody comes to you, get up and move around. Like bust it out. Get that story going. Move your body. Go meet somebody else. Tell your story. Invite the other person to be the hero and look for shining eyes. Let's practice our storytelling now. I'll know you're ready to engage when I see your faces and I see your shining eyes. And you know what? You can keep practicing your story over lunch. Our friends on the breakout rooms are coming back into plenary, and I am curious. I'm curious how that feels. Are the things that you discovered? What do you see now that you didn't see before? What surprised you in that experience? And what will you do now? 2 minutes. Anybody stand up and say? Anybody on the chat? If there's chat responses to those questions, what do you see now that you didn't see before? What surprised you about this experience? And what will you do now? Anyone? Bueller? Bueller? Anyone? Yeah, you do. Yeah. Come to a mic so we can all hear it. It's up here. It's up here. It's right there. It's right there. It's right there. Yeah, have a mic there. Oh, there's another one over there.
People were actually listening. They were listening. They were focusing in on the person that was talking, and they were understanding their situation. So I think that was what I watched.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anything on the chat coming in? Nope, nothing coming in on the chat. Any responses? Anyone else? What's going on when you told that story? How'd that feel? Okay, Nancy.
I heard community stories. We're all community, wherever we are, whatever we do, putting our faith into action.
Oh, fantastic. Excellent. One more pass. Yeah. Oh, we've got somebody from online. Yeah. We need to practice our stories and listen. Thank you to the online community for that reflection. Wow. Last pass. Anyone else? What will you do now? I want you to walk away with that question. What will you do now? If you want to learn more about how to develop these sorts of skills, I'd invite you to join with me on June the 11th. I facilitate a national online conversation about getting started in stewardship. If you thought it was all about the money, it's about the money and more. And more. And really what it is about grounding ourselves as disciples of the one who tells our story. So I'm so excited to invite you to be part of that, you to take action and join with others across the country and join with me online. June 11th is our next time, and then we're meeting again in August. Yeah, so I say for every folks, if these sorts of conversations are really new to you and you'd like to get more practice, just get started. Just get started. Come to getting started, and then you can figure out where else you want to go. Okay? Does that make sense? All right. And I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to you. Again, look at this room and recognize the impact that one person's story had 2,000 years ago on us today, on us, how we connect, how we belong, how we are inspired to share. How amazing is that we get to be part of this, that you get to be part of this. Thank you for your time today. Amen.
Don't go far. I'm looking for Kathy Smith. Kathy Smith. There you are. So Kathy's going to do some last minute announcements, and then Melody's going to lead us in grace, and then we're going to. Oh, apparently Ted. Come on, Ted. Yes. Well, we've got 3 minutes. You can Pat? We're going to get Pat. What's she doing? Was she doing a book?
So folks, have you
Well, the first thing I'd like to say, has everybody cleared out all the books in the other room? Because Pat is really counting on us to loosen the load before she goes home. So don't forget to check out the bookstore in the other room. The other thing that I'd like to draw your attention to are the beautiful centerpieces. Those were created by our local arrangements team, and all of those flowers that you see come from the gardens of St. Andrew's United Church here in Sault Ste. Marie. Aren't they beautiful? We have to give thanks to the ladies who put those together. They are wonderful arrangers, are they not? Yeah, they didn't ask me. I would never get that close, I tell you. So I think that's all that I have. Okay. So I think it's time. I'm just getting the prompt of the right time. I'm just here to announce that nominations have officially closed. So I thank you to everyone. You've got 2 minutes. You doing one? I'll wait for you. We can go for Grace. Nominations are officially closed. Thanks, folks. And thank you for those who have been nominated. And don't worry, if we don't fill them, we'll still be tapping.